One of the things that would most astonish a pre-modern ancestor if they suddenly found themselves in our world is how much time we spend deciding whether someone is right for us. Across most of human history, the path from first encounter to lifelong commitment was astonishingly short. In ancient Sumeria, a single formal audience could be enough to determine a marriage. In classical Athens, young men and women might meet only a handful of times before families agreed on a match. In the Inca Empire, it was not unusual for spouses to meet for the very first time on their wedding day. To our modern minds, this sounds reckless, even dangerous. How could anyone commit so quickly without knowing whether they were compatible? And yet, when we look at our own practices, we might begin to wonder whether we have gone too far in the opposite direction. Today, romantic decision-making unfolds at an almost glacial pace. We often date casually for months, sometimes years, keeping options open and avoiding exclusivity. Eventually, we may agree to commit to one another, but even then, the relationship remains provisional. We move in together to see how it goes. We test domestic life, shared finances, holidays, stress, boredom, and conflict. Only after 4, 5, or even 10 years do we consider engagement or decide that the relationship was a mistake after all. What is striking is how often these long relationships end over relatively minor differences, political disagreements, conflicting tastes in music or interior design, slightly different attitudes toward timekeeping, socializing, or leisure. After years of emotional investment, we may conclude that we are simply not compatible. At the core of this modern approach lies a deeply ingrained belief that successful relationships depend primarily on compatibility. We assume that love works best when two people naturally align emotionally, intellectually, sexually, and morally. We believe there must be a near-perfect fit, a sense of ease, recognition, and familiarity that requires little effort to maintain. This belief is often wrapped in romantic language. We speak of soulmates, of feeling as though we have known someone forever, of discovering the one. According to this worldview, love is something to be found, not built. If it is right, it should feel right, quickly, and consistently. Our ancestors held a radically different view. They believed that what sustained relationships was not compatibility, but commitment. They did not expect harmony to pre-exist the relationship. They expected it to emerge from it. Alignment, in their eyes, was not a starting point. It was an outcome. From this perspective, marriage was less about choosing the perfect person and more about choosing to build a shared life with someone imperfect. The identity of the spouse mattered far less than the seriousness with which the commitment was taken. As long as basic criteria were met, age, health, social standing, the deeper work would be done later, through patience, negotiation, and mutual adjustment. This does not mean that pre-modern couples were naive about difficulty. On the contrary, they expected it. They assumed that misunderstanding, irritation, and disappointment were normal features of intimate life. The presence of conflict did not signal failure, it signaled reality. Because commitment came first, effort followed naturally. After arguments, couples returned to conversation. After hurt, they sought repair. Individuals restrained certain impulses, not because they lacked desire, but because they valued the relationship more than immediate gratification. Love was not sustained by constant emotional pleasure, but by endurance. In this older framework, compatibility was something created through time. It was forged by shared routines, mutual sacrifice, and repeated attempts to understand one another's inner worlds. Love was not effortless, but it was meaningful. Our modern discomfort with this idea is understandable. We fear being trapped in the wrong relationship. We worry that commitment will lock us into misery. And so we delay, test, analyze, and keep escape routes open. We want certainty before we invest fully. Yet this desire for certainty may itself undermine the very stability we seek. When we believe that relationships should feel easy, we interpret difficulty as a warning sign. When we expect our partner to intuitively understand us, misunderstanding feels like evidence of incompatibility. When we believe that the right person will naturally meet our needs, effort begins to feel like a burden rather than a responsibility. Our ancestors understood something that we often resist. Everyone is in important ways wrong for us. No one will fully grasp our inner life without explanation. No one will share all our tastes. No one will consistently meet our emotional needs without being told what they are. Disappointment is not an exception to love, it is a central feature of it. This does not mean we should stay in harmful or abusive relationships, but it does suggest that many of the differences we now treat as deal breakers were once understood as normal challenges to be worked through. Perhaps the most radical lesson we can take from the past is this: wanting to be married or wanting to build a life together may matter more than whom we marry. When two people genuinely share the intention to stay, to repair, and to grow, many incompatibilities lose their destructive power. Seen from this perspective, the modern obsession with finding the right person begins to look misplaced. We may have exaggerated the importance of innate compatibility and underestimated the transformative power of commitment. Love, after all, is not just a feeling, it is a practice. And once we understand that, the idea of committing after a few meaningful encounters may no longer seem reckless. If commitment is present, the details can be negotiated, preferences can be adjusted, understanding can deepen. Perhaps the true mistake of modern romance is not that we choose too quickly, but that we choose too cautiously, waiting for perfection where only effort was ever required.